Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Geomancer class with a bunch of teams. So of course, Geomancer has been in the game for about 2 weeks now, so there's been plenty of time to go and max it out. We've had 2 class events. I believe we'll be having one more in 2 weeks from today as well, for the final week of the campaign thing for the New Kingdom. So there's a lot of potential to be able to go and get this pretty good hero class max. It's a very bulky hero class, has 50% score reduction, has 50% mana star for all constructs, which is the main gimmick that you're going to be using for it, similar to how Titan has that mechanic. Has Stone Tree, so it has Barrier on Brown. Once fully maxed, of course, has all those immunities, which is really solid. Has a very wide choice of mana accumulation, so overall, a pretty solid hero class in a literal sense that it is among one of the tankier ones, among the level of like Sentinel, Monk, stuff like that, in just a different way. So let's go and mention a bunch of teams for this thing. Let's actually start with the one for the class trials. So this actually ends up utilizing one of the stronger mechanics that this hero class can do, and that is the Chalcedony. So as far as this troop is concerned, it is basically like a night spider that does damage. It only creates one color and does overall less damage, less mana accumulation, like as far as gems being created. However, the main benefit to this is that it's creating all of a single color. This is very good because you don't have to worry about double color overlapping when you're creating your gems, and being able to create a lot of a single color like this is very strong. By default, it's creating at least 6, even if you had nothing else on your team that was a construct. However, with a full team of constructs, which generally, more often than not with Geomancer you're going to be doing, you're going to get a total of 15 gem spawn, 12 from the boost ratio and 3 from its base value. That's a lot of gem spawn to be getting for a 12 mana cost that could feed back into itself, and has the potential to infinite loop. The biggest issue that this has is it has a bit of a truffle issue, in that in theory it could keep going forever, but it has to deal with freeze, which can just completely shut it down, and it also has to deal with the fact that it's really low damage. And one big issue with this is that it is even lower damage than that of Truffle, whereas Truffle is doing about this much damage to all enemies simultaneously, whereas this is doing it to only one enemy at a time. But still, it is really strong to double up on it, use it with a Geomancer with some weapon, and then have one other option, either a third Chalcedony, something like ideally like super high damage source like Mistralis or something similar, whatever you kind of want to put there. But you basically have to have something to hold down your line. In lower battles, it won't be as big a deal, but similar to Truffle, it just does not end up putting a lot of damage onto the board, even though it does have a very, very high amount of mana accumulation. And here we're just using the Brownstorm off the Legendary, so when we get some Cascades, we will hopefully be able to get even more mana onto the board, and we can basically just keep going over and over again. At this point, we've reached the infinite loop portion of the team, where in theory, you could just keep clicking over and over and over again, and essentially never drop its turn. To such a degree, we can kind of show this in a explore area. So if we go to some place like Golvania here, where the battle will last quite a bit longer, we can actually go and use this team and just show how many times Chalcedony can end up getting a hit in a row. Though we'll probably start casting some other stuff to kind of speed it up a little bit, but we could technically just do it all on Chalcedony if we truly want to. We could probably even just keep casting the same one if we want to. Keep in mind, you can replace outs for other things like Browns that might have extra turn potential, though keep in mind they might not necessarily be a construct. So as far as teams are concerned for pure construct, one of the biggest issues right now is we don't have a very wide choice of mythics, and some of the best options that we have in the game, like a construct explodey weapon, a better mythic option for it, and even Xenith, that one legendary, aren't technically fully in the game yet, and will be over the next couple weeks and into the future. So there are some things that this hero class will be able to do that it currently can't in the state of the game, that it will be able to probably in the upcoming weeks to months as we get additional options. So that's basically the infinite loop team. So let's go into the next one. I was just mentioning mythics. There is not a very wide choice of mythics that are construct that you can end up utilizing, unfortunately. The selection, if we go under the troop types, if we go under construct and then order based on rarity, we do not have the best of selection. It's a little bit of a rogue problem where it basically just has Mother of Darkness. Of course, Ironhawk is here, but Ironhawk from a like full team perspective isn't really that good. There's these 7, and by these 7 I mean this 6, and by these 6 I mean like these 4, because technically Sacred Treasure and Horde Mimic isn't technically a mythic, well they are, but they aren't. So we really only, oh sorry, did I say 4? I mean 5. So those 2 technically aren't. So we only have these 5 basically, and of these 5, realistically, it's just Lord or Slaughter. Ironhawk is kind of like a Gorgotha, But if you wanted something like a Gorgotha, you would just use Chernabog, which is a legendary that has Perpetual Brownstorm. So if you wanted that on a construct team, you're just using Chernabog anyways, so you're not really bothering with the Ironhawk. It's just not worth using in that context, though he's still insane for farming, if nothing else. But on those teams, you generally don't actually have to cast your Ironhawk. Anyways, so let's go with a Lord Slaughter. This actually uses a really fun combo, among one of my favorite ones in the game. Definitely really high up there. The Lord of Slaughter into the Archdiva. So this does two things. It has a Bless, so in case we do end up getting tangled, free, stuff like that, any kind of mechanic that would be generally considered very annoying to have on this thing, we can end up just countering out and be good to go. However, the main gimmick that we're going to be doing is having this Brownstorm here from this troop, and then we can basically just convert everything, get a lot of value, immediately go and buff it up into another cast it again, and this will ideally just wipe the entire enemy. And if we haven't already killed everything, we could throw down Hero for a couple skulls, and ideally he'd be dead right now. We unfortunately don't have freeze like a Zugop team, so we aren't able to get that there, but we'll go for one more cast, obliterate it out, and there we go. We're also doing damage directly to their HP value, so we don't have to worry about anything like that. And as long as you don't have really high score reduction, as this team doesn't have Enrage on it, but it does do a very high stat buff that kind of gets everything rolling there. And basically same premise again, could have actually taken an extra turn there, but I don't think it's going to matter. We end up just basically doing the same cycle where we end up going for the cast, getting it all the way buffed, which also gives it full mana, cast it again, and pretty straightforward. We cast the skull weapon again, ideally get extra turn or all the skulls we need to kill, and then we win. Yeah, that's pretty much the team in a nutshell. And it's that's its main goal every single time. It does fall apart ever so slightly when we end up taking a death on Lord of Slaughter. However, it is meant more so for super hyper offensive. And it does have a backup tank, if nothing else. Technically, everything on that team can kind of tank a little. Anyways, next we have showing Stone Slicer. So Stone Slicer, as well as trying to utilize one of the other mythics that we have, though this will likely be changed out for better ones into the future. So 4x constructs, this is definitely going to be a lot stronger when we have Xenith, as far as the potential that we can end up doing with 4x construct, as it will likely use double Xenith into Hero and one other option, and that'll basically be the main premise of the team. However, here's another one that we can end up utilizing up until then. So Stone Slicer is an interesting weapon. It creates a bunch of brown and purple. Normally these double gem creating weapons are pretty average. They don't tend to get like super high amount of usage. However, the main gimmick that this has, aside from having Brownstorm, though we already have it on this team, but if you didn't, you could utilize it. But the main gimmick it has is purple. It uses purple mana while creating purple. It is one of only a few of these double gem creating weapons that feeds back into itself, which gives it a lot of potential to be good. Is it actually like insanely good? It's situational. The biggest issue that it normally has is starting up. But once it gets going, we're normally good to go, because it's going to be getting mana for absolutely everything, though it can still miss. The Chalcedonis, as I was mentioning earlier, do have quite a bit of a better chance of hitting compared to that of a double gem creating option. So it does have that going for it, and we can kind of use this as a little bit of a explosion there. Got our luck that we needed. We can whittle down with Stone Slicer, which is the main gimmick here, because it can feed back into itself. The main premise that we want to do is Stone Slicer chip them until we can then get into this kill range and then kill it out. Unfortunately, we were not able to get all the way into the kill range, so we'll simply just go for a bunch of explosion, ideally get it into kill range, and then repeat the cycle where we just keep casting the weapon, do that over and over and over again, do it into the finisher option, and then repeat the cycle until we end up winning. And that's basically the premise of this team until it ends up getting its win. So we'll do that one last time. Actually, one more for good measure. And just because it's RNG is a little wide range as far as what we can end up doing. And it's basically the main premise there. And we got a chest. Unfortunately, nothing good in it, like per usual. Anyways, next, let's go into the Pure Brown team, and the final team that I'll be showing for now. Though we will likely be showing quite a few things with this hero class once Xenith is officially in. Technically you can get a Xenith, technically you can get double Xenith, however both are pretty money locked, especially if you want to get double Xenith. However, once we have our first Xenith, we will go and cover a video on it, as it is a pretty relevant one, though it won't have its full potential until double, due to the fact that it needs boost ratio, oddly enough, off itself to really properly fully work. But here's a brown Guild War option. I was mentioning Mistralis some. Obviously, Mistralis is not a construct. However, her main gimmick that is good is she's an extra turn brown. Extra turn brown is really good with a lot of constructs, as constructs tend to have a lot of excess brown with how they're built these days, especially because of this troop being among one of the better mana accumulators. It's basically a Gorgolfa with Brown Storm while creating Brown, which makes it quite viable in a lot of these construct teams, as it is, of course, itself a construct. So we basically just utilize that, clear out the board as we need. Just keep cycling mana over and over again. Wait until we have a lineman off a Doomed Club, then cast it, and basically just rinse and repeat. And we have a lot of potential to keep getting Mistralis back up, just keep poking for damage, and has a lot of ways to survive. Obviously, we have infinite resummon off of the Angry Mob while having really good mana accumulation. We're utilizing the extra turn off of Mistralis while also having Enchant in case we fall behind. Doomed Club for 1.5 billion damage, and this guy's just here to tank and mana accumulate. Basically a Gorgolfa just with different options. And we'll use him here as his mana accumulation, and at this point we can just kill it out with a Mistralis, and hopefully we'll get enough hits, and it does. And even if it doesn't, it's still our turn because she has auto extra turn, as long as you're not frozen. But anyways, guys, that is just a couple teams that we have for Geomancer currently. There will definitely be quite a bit more. Obviously, we have things like Xenith in the pipeline right now. Actually, that's not where Xenith is. Xenith is over here, which will be out in, actually next week. We'll end up having Xenith actually around this time next week. Through the daily thingy. It would be possible to get it without spending any additional gems or any additional money. And basically, the main gimmick that he has, and probably a lot of teams are going to shift to once single Xenith, double Xenith can end up doing, not all teams, but specifically construct teams, is it ends up creating a Evil Gargoyle gem when matching for an extra turn, and it ends up creating 5 Doom Skulls boosted by Evil Gargoyle gems. So let's say there's 2 Evil Gargoyle gems on the board. That's 6, it's going to be 11. So if we can end up getting 3, that's going to be 14 then. That's a very solid amount. That's basically 1 per mana cost at that point. And one thing you have to keep in mind is this basically going to be a Skull Essence of Evil. Essence of Evil places every negative status effect onto a single enemy and then ends up exploding. This is going to be very similar to that with a lot more damage pressure because you're going to be able to go and basically put 4 you'll basically, the entire enemy team will be hit with every negative status effect because you're just going to keep spamming Evil Gargoyle gems. You're going to have a ton of them. You take like 5 extra turns, you have 10 on the board. You take all of them, you're applying 10 negative status effects to the enemy's team. Those, of course, can overlap and be the same one, which means you're getting less than 10. However, you're still going to be getting almost every status effect in those situations, while still getting the mana accumulation bonus of Doom Skulls exploding, while still having the damage pressure of doing that many skulls. So I'm really curious to see how this pans out. It's definitely going to be probably one of the biggest things that will actually boost up the viability of the Geomancer class, and very curious to see how it pans out once we have the option to single, double, and other similar teams with that. But anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. All of the teams that we mentioned during this video are in description if you want to go copy paste any of them. And thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye.